ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਖਾਸ ਪੇਸ਼ਕਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਤੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਹਾਂ ਜਸਦੀਨ ਕੌਰ। 16 ਜੁਲਾਈ ਤੋਂ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਰੀਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਦੀ ਤੀਜੀ ਸਟੇਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦਾਖਲ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਦੱਸ ਦਈਏ ਕਿ ਬੀਤੇ ਦਿਨੀ ਕਈ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਅਤੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਆਗੂਆਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਅਪੀਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਸਟੇਜ 3 ਦੀ ਰੀਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਆਗੂ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਮੇਅਰ ਪੈਟਰਿਕ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਵੀ ਸਨ। ਜੇ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਅੰਕੜਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਤੇ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ 50% ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਲੋਕੀ ਫੁੱਲੀ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਟਡ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ 70% ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਡੋਜ਼ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੀਲ ਰੀਜਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ 60% ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਲੋਕੀ ਫੁੱਲੀ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਟਡ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ 80% ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਡੋਜ਼ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਕੀ ਪੀਲ ਰੀਜਨ ਰੀਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਦੀ 3rd ਸਟੇਜ ਲਈ ਤਿਆਰ ਸੀ? ਇਸੇ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਰੀਜਨਲ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਮਾਰਟਿਨ ਮੈਡੀਰੋਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। Hello, Councillor Medeiros. Thank you so much for joining PTC Punjabi once again. It is always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here on PTC, and I always appreciate the opportunity to speak with residents, especially in the city of Brampton.
As we know, Ontario has now entered the stage 3 of reopening. Last week, Ontario's Science Table Director, Dr. Peter Juni, said that Ontario is not yet ready to reopen. He also mentioned that we have now a Lambda variant as well, and the Delta variant is completely a different beast. We have cases of new variants, but on the other side, we also heard that Mayor Patrick Brown also urged province to reopen ahead of schedule. Do you really think that Peel region or specifically Brampton is ready to open?
Yeah, and first of all, I think I agree with our medical officer, the Ontario Provincial Medical Officer, when he says that we have to be cautious in terms of the reopening. We see what's happening in Britain. We see what's happening in other European countries where there was a quick reopening, and now they're seeing their numbers, really skyrocket, and that's concerning. We see what's happening in the United States. I think what Mayor Brown was referring to wasn't so much opening up everything. It was more open up everything when it comes to parks and recreation, sports activities, allowing, one thing that we see that it's important that kids, not only from a physical aspect, but from a mental health aspect, they get to play their sports. And really, when we see what has been transmission rates and trends, has been really from other type of practices and workplaces and so on. And, in terms of sports, I think Mayor Brown was referring to allowing kids and youth sports groups, leagues, to get back going, and I think he was referring more to that.
As per the data, 58% of the population in Peel region is fully vaccinated, and around 80% of the population is vaccinated with first dose. But due to some mixing and matching of the vaccines now, we do see some hesitancy in people, especially in Peel region.
Yeah, and I know there's been some mixed messaging because it's been reported there was a situation at, I believe, the State Mac Center where people they were in line and they had thought they were going to receive one of the vaccines, but unfortunately they found out that they were going to receive another one, and that created a little bit of confusion. I think Dr. Lowe, who's our Chief Medical Officer here for Peel Region, has been very transparent and open and very consistent that you should take the vaccine which is offered to you. That certainly from all the studies that and the guidance they're getting from not only the provincial table, but also from the federal health agency and from the federal health officer, is that from their studies that it's okay to mix the Myrna vaccines. And also in terms of in conjunction, there's been studies out of Britain where it suggests that you can take one of the traditional Astra, for example, with a Myrna. So there's been studies there, and I think they've been very consistent. I think the communication sometimes is a problem, and people, obviously, this idea of mixing vaccines, people are concerned. But fundamentally, from what I've been told, that when you're dealing with two Myrnas, for example, regardless of the brand, the body, it's essentially the same technology, it's the same basic status, and they have the same foundation, and really the body can't detect if it's one brand or another. So I will continue to follow what the science says and continue to follow what our Dr. Lowe suggests. But certainly I understand where people sometimes get confused or get concerned because we're talking about something that goes in one's body. And I know there's been some hesitancy around some of the vaccines.
Recently, Brampton City also arranged a 40-hour marathon clinic, especially for those people who work in odd hours. As we know that there is still some vaccine hesitancy among people, so what creative way and creative opportunities Brampton City is looking at to make sure that everyone in the community is vaccinated?
Yeah, and it's important to say that we've been important partners, the City of Brampton, working with Region Appeal. The health department for the Region Appeal are the ones who have the lead on this. So the City of Brampton is really just coordinating and supporting their role. It was important that we get as many people that we need vaccinated. We've seen the numbers go significantly down here in Brampton. The rates are very positive. If you look at some of the postal codes, and actually the postal code I live in, L6Y2B7, and the L6Y postal code areas have been an area which has been very successful in vaccination. And so we just have to get that message out. We have to keep doing this. We want our workers at the City of Brampton, especially when I know there's a vaccine clinic happening, which is going to be focused on transit workers, focused on those in the transportation industry who take others and sometimes for their living and for their wages, they have to really interact with people. And it's important that people get vaccinated. And so I'm really proud about the way the Region Appeal and City of Brampton have coordinated efforts to really do that. And you can see that it's had a real positive impact in Brampton.
As we are in stage 3 of reopening now, everyone is excited and we'll see larger gatherings, especially in the indoor facilities. So how will City make sure that people follow health guidelines properly? And is there anything that concerns you now in stage 3?
Yeah, and that's a very important point. I think there's some excitement. Obviously, today's an important day about entering phase 3. But we have to remain cautious. I personally, for us to get to where we are today, and you've seen that there's been a fourth wave already hitting some other communities, which we talked about in Europe and in the United States. So I just think that from the City of Brampton's perspective, we're following the guidelines to a T. We'll be ready if there's eventuality to move on to the next. I just think you have to be cautious. But, one of the difficulties that we found is that, small businesses who I felt do a fantastic job in terms of enforcing health guidelines and controlling, they've been really treated unfairly during this COVID period, because you saw the big box stores and they've been open, and our small businesses have taken the unequal brunt of a lot of these measures. So the fact that from a business perspective, I know a lot of restaurants and different types of businesses are really, really looking forward to having people be able to serve their customers, get customers in, because not everybody can open up a patio. Not everybody has the space. Not everybody can do that. So that's going to be important. The only concern I have is seeing that spike. And from the information I have, everything looks like there'll be a spike. We have to expect that, especially at the beginning of fall. So we just have to, again, and what we've been told, continue to use masks, continue to follow the hygienic practices, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, keep social distancing 2 meters. So, I think it's important that people, I know, want to get back to celebrations, get back to being together. It's just that people have to be very cautious about how they do it and maintain some certain guidelines and follow some of the guidelines to make sure that we just don't get back into a situation. We've seen scenarios where people have been double vaccinated already, received their 2 vaccinations, and unfortunately have caught COVID. And obviously, the majority of COVID, as we know, the 2 vaccines is important. So that doesn't have that impact where it's hospitalization. So it's more of a mild impact in general that leads to the transmission. So we still have to follow, in my opinion, and based on the information we got from the guidelines which we've been following over the last couple of years.
Councillor Medeiros, we will continue this chat, but right after a short break. Welcome back after the break. We have in conversation with us the regional councillor from Brampton, Martin Medeiros. Councillor Medeiros, as we were discussing the stage 3 reopening of Ontario, we know that some provinces are launching vaccine passports so that people who are fully vaccinated can have the access to the non-essential facilities. But Premier Doug Ford had firmly rejected the possibility of implementing the vaccine passports in Ontario. So what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion, and it's complex because I see kind of both sides. Ultimately, we will follow what the province rules. Doug Ford has said he doesn't want two Ontarios or two sets of privileges, but I do also know, for example, some businesses or some theaters or so on are going to require some proof or looking to require some proof of being double vaccinated. But then I also know that some civil liberty groups and some residents have come out and say that's discriminatory, unconstitutional. So certainly I think, law is going to set the record straight and it's going to provide guidance. And certainly I look towards the provincial government to implement it. The federal government is also, working on, what those passports in terms of travel, what they would be required, because certain countries, especially like in Europe, they have rolled out already vaccine passports, or where someone has to, before they enter the country, has to provide that proof. So there's a lot of, I think, mixed communication, a lot of different approaches. I'm kind of disappointed, to be quite honest, that the federal government took the approach where they're allowing the provinces to implement what they want. So it does provide, this confusion where you got Quebec doing one thing, but Alberta wants to do something completely different. And I just would have hoped that there would have been a consistent approach across the country. And, so I'll look towards what Doug Ford's government will do. But I do recognize that for businesses and for sports entertainment, it's a challenge on who you let in, and do you want to be that source of transmission for those who are not vaccinated, and hopefully, God forbid, that then again, once again, that they have to get into a situation if there's an outbreak of some sort. My understanding is that those are some of those complicated conversations that people are having, and I just would have hoped that in Canada that we have a consistent approach across all provinces.
Absolutely, and I would like to add here that Toronto Mayor John Tory has also called the provincial government and requested to create a voluntary system that would help individual businesses or organizations determine the vaccination status of the customers, their staff members. And even Toronto Region Board of Trade has also endorsed this initiative.
Yeah, and I understand why. Again, these are practices that people want to ensure, especially businesses want to ensure that their customers are safe, that they're being responsible. So certainly they don't want to deal with having to close down for one reason or another. So it's a complex argument, but I do think it's important that everyone vaccinate, and hopefully we'll get better vaccination rates and at least be able to live to somewhat is the new norm with this COVID.
So talking about some rules and regulations, we know that a mask will be mandatory especially for indoor facilities at least till September. Can you give us some details if there will be any fines if people do not obey this law?
Yeah, in my understanding, again, these are those considerations. They will be, at the city of Brampton. There's a bylaw that you have to wear a mask till September, and if you don't, you usually we don't take a heavy hand approach. We do provide warnings, and but obviously, if people are not listening to it, they could be fined. And unfortunately, that is the situation. We've extended our bylaw till September. And we will continue to monitor and follow what the guidelines are. We enacted the guidelines which were given to us by Peel Region's medical officer, Dr. Lowe, and we wanted a consistent approach across the region of Peel. So my understanding, the other municipalities also extended the bylaw to the same time period.
And as you mentioned earlier that some communities are already experiencing fourth wave of COVID-19. We are not sure yet that Canada will experience fourth wave or no, but if Canada experiences the fourth wave, how will Brampton ensure that the healthcare capacity is not threatened by COVID-19 again?
Yeah, and that's a very important question, and that's why we've turned our mind to it. But it was interesting as Mayor Brown in our recent council meeting last week had expressed that Brampton was one of the top communities that had most patients in hospitals due to COVID, and as of last week we had one. So we had only one person, and one is already too much, and certainly I hope that individual recovers well. But I do think where we are today, if people continue to vaccinate, all the science tells us that we'll at least stand up to this virus, and we won't eradicate it, but at least we will be able to live with this new norm. So that's why it's so important we vaccinate. But in terms of is the city of Brampton, are we ready as a community? I would say that especially with this year, with a lot of elections coming up, or the upcoming year, we have a federal election. Looks like it's going to happen during the fall. We have a provincial election in June, and then we have certainly a municipal election. So the whole question of healthcare has to be top of mind to Bramptonians, and and you raise a really important point. If there is a fourth wave, do we have the health? Do we have the capacity to deal with the fourth wave? Seeing what's happening in Europe and other countries, you see a spike, and that's very concerning. And certainly we're more of a fragile community than others, and that just reinforces our message to our counterparts that we need more investment in healthcare in the city of Brampton.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Councillor Medeiros, for joining PTC Punjabi once again. It is always nice talking to you.
Yeah, and I thank you very much. And again, the only thing I would say, I encourage everyone, please go vaccinate. If you have issues today, for example, we're opening up Save Max, and it's you don't need an appointment. It's a walk-in. If there's a means, if anyone needs to or do not know where to go to get vaccinated, by all means, contact myself, martin.medeiros@brampton.ca, or they can call me directly at 416-806-0239, 416-806-0239, and I'm more than happy to help coordinate to ensure that they get vaccinated. And thank you very much, PTC, and have a good summer if we don't talk, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too. ਸੋ ਐਸੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਖਾਸ ਪੇਸ਼ਕਸ਼ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸੋ ਐਸੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਖਾਸ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਰੀਜਨਲ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਮਾਰਟਿਨ ਮੈਡੀਰੋਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਜਾਂਦੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਅਪੀਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਟੇਜ 3 ਦੀ ਰੀਓਪਨਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦਾ ਖਾਸ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਣ ਤੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਗਾਈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਧਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿਣ। ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੋਈ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਲਿਖ ਕੇ ਭੇਜੋ feedback@ptcnetwork.com ਤੇ। ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ, ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਲਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਤੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀਆਂ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਣੇ ਰਹੋ PTC ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।